enough to appreciate a beautiful day. So I thought I'd make this impromptu live. Only a couple of minutes of planning, which may become obvious immediately. But I wanted to basically do this in way of a follow-up from yesterday when I was talking at some length about nature and the need to, in my opinion, live more in harmony with the natural world on the planet. And as part of that conversation, as it turned out, because there were a few comments and thoughts from people, as I was essentially broadcasting across two different platforms. And if you did interact, thank you very much. If you did watch, thank you very much as well. But I thought I'd get to the part that I really wanted to summarize here, that maybe in many ways actually encapsulates what I believe we need to focus on, which is the planet and is the natural world. And the reason that as the title of this may suggest, I've decided to focus on Mars, is because, in a nutshell, there's a lot of talk about us essentially setting up base and then home on another planet, in this case Mars, and from there the idea would be that the human race spreads out across the galaxy, different planets. And I love the idea. Romantically, I think it is a great idea. And I think in due course, given half a chance, it will happen. But one of the challenges that I have with that is that if all the energy and enthusiasm is pointed towards Mars, and it isn't, all of it isn't, but there's a lot of talk, there's a lot of money being invested, and of course one of the people who is heading up that that mission, literally to Mars, is Elon Musk. And Elon Musk talks about the need for the human race to be, in this instance, Mars. And I think that's a laudable idea. So it's not the concept of it, but for me it is the fact that there's a huge amount of money already being invested, and yes, of course, the argument is, but that benefits things on Earth because we get better technology, etc., etc. And I think that we should be investigating a base on Mars. We should be setting out to do it, but at what cost? In other words, where's the ratio of the investment, the money, the focus, the time, the energy? Where is it placed? On Earth or Mars? And there is a danger. And sometimes I do wonder what Elon Musk means when he talks about Mars. There is a danger that we put that much focus on that planet that we forget about this one. Sometimes I think, is this a lost cause? Now, I don't believe that it is remotely. I do not believe that at all. But it worries me that it could become so trendy, so much of some people's focus, big corporations, as I say, a lot of money, a lot of investment, that we do not look to this planet. Because when we look around it, there's so much suffering. There's so much strife. There's so much going on that needs to be resolved. We need to find better ways for the human race to exist on the planet in harmony with nature and to stop destroying it. As I've said before, it sustains us. The planet sustains us. It sustains us physiologically and psychologically. And if we find ourselves in a situation where not all the resource, but a huge amount of the focus and the resource is about Mars, then that to me is illogical, to say the least. It is foolish. It is odd and strange, and perhaps driven by a certain amount of hubris and ego by certain world players. Oh, let's be first to Mars. Let's set up a base there. How cool would that be? Yes, I agree. It would be cool. It would be cool. But it's not, in my opinion, the answer. And as I've said before, what I would suggest is that we need to sort ourselves out. And I sort of finished off the other live, or towards the end of it, by saying, in essence, that, imagine the situation many, many, many years ago, perhaps hundreds of thousands of years ago. There was a race on a planet, a group of people, a species, perhaps more accurately, and they couldn't get along. And let's say that planet was Mars, and they found that they just could not get over the fighting. They could not find anything in common. They always found difference. They always found ways to fund wars. They always found ways to invest in technology which was destructive. And eventually, they destroyed the planet. And Mars, some people I've seen writing suggest that it bears the semblance of a place that has experienced thermonuclear scorching. That's one interpretation for some of the findings on Mars. And suppose that species, that group of people who were on Mars, were our forefathers. We are essentially their children. Because what they did is they destroyed the planet. And then they said, oh gosh, let's launch a few space life rafts and head to that world over there. We'll call it Earth, and we'll terraform it, or we'll shape it to the way that we want. And we'll make things better. We won't fall out the way that we did here, and we won't destroy the planet the way that we did here. And so, ironically, we began on Mars, potentially. I know this is obviously also a possible flight of fancy, but maybe something like that has happened. And then they get to Earth, and lo and behold, they can't get along there. And then the idea is that we take all our troubles and strife from Earth, as we're now being encouraged to get excited about, and spread that out over the planet. What exactly would we be bringing? Would it be a McDonald's on every corner? They're not to knock McDonald's. They provide some sort of service, and I'm sure some people would argue in their defence. But what would we be bringing? What would we be taking? I don't think we should be putting too much resource into looking at Mars and other planets until we sort things out here, so that if the human race lasts long enough to expand throughout the solar system, the galaxy, the universe, then what we'd be bringing would be a culture of peace, a culture of empathy, a culture of friendship. And unless we get to that point, then is it not extraordinarily arrogant of us to presume, as a lot of people do presume on the planet, that we have dominion over it, over the other creatures on this planet, which I don't believe that we do. We share it with them. And so would it be a case of the same thing on a much grander scale? Hey, let's go and colonize all these other worlds and bring our culture. What exactly would that culture be? Have we any right? Shouldn't we get things sorted here first before we go out there to boldly go and split our infinitives elsewhere? Question. So that's my thought. I'm not, again, space and Mars, again, I get the romance of it, but I just think we have to put an awful lot more focus here on Earth and find ways to live in harmony and stop focusing and fighting over difference. And yes, I'm aware that can sound idealistic and perhaps too romanticized a vision, but I think at least we've got to try. Anyway, for the moment, from me, thank you very much. If you've been tuning in, I shall sign off with those thoughts. Bye for now.